kids whose parents used to put them on leashes. How are you doing today? My dad tried one of those out with me while I was learning to ski. It worked great until I went out to its fullest length and another kid skied between us and got clotheslined by it. We didn't use it after that. My older brother was abducted in a mall when he was a toddler, not for long but long enough. It was a split second. My dad turned around and a lady grabbed him and walked away. My dad put me on a leash in very busy places. I don't really see the big deal. I got to walk freely and he didn't have to worry about that split second. To answer your question, I'm doing well. I once asked a parent why he was doing this. His son had severe ADHD. He told me that he liked better to look like a dumbass with a son on a leash than having a dead son in the middle of the road. I've never asked this question again and I will never ask it again either. I too have had no sense of danger as a child. I've no idea if my parents used a leash, but I wouldn't have blamed them if they did. I didn't use a leash on my kid, but my sister did on her youngest. The kid is bright and sweet, but she has ADHD and can't seem to stay on track for more than a minute. Since she was growing up in a highly congested German city, I'd say the leash may have kept her from being run over and killed. So she's doing okay. I'm over 50 but I seem alright. I had 2 older brothers and 1 younger by only 18 months. My mom did the best she could. From when I just started to walk, we lived in a house with no fence and beyond the yard was the train tracks. I had a harness with a long tether in the middle of my back. My mom would attach the tether to the clothesline and I could run around in our yard and my mom could look out at me from the back windows and do housework and care for my little brother. I was safe but still got to run around in fresh air. Just as adventurous as I used to be, little me would literally jump off a mountain to see what is down below. My parents had to put me on a leash if we were going out until I was like 4. I was on a leash when I was really little. One time we were out at the mall and I was on my leash and some woman came up to us to shame my parents, saying how terrible. Just like a dog, so naturally I got down on all fours and started barking at her. Totally shocked her and gave my parents a big laugh. I'm doing great today, and TBH I needed to be on that leash. BC I would just go up to strangers in public and hug them, completely disappear in crowded places. It probably kept me from getting kidnapped, lol. Way to go with what they said. That would have been hilarious to see. My younger sister was put on a leash after she ran off one talk many times in Costco. She pulled on the shopping cart that had my other little sister in it, saying that she wanted to be a sled dog. Fine. I really don't understand why people think it's such a big deal. I got to run around feeling all independent like, and mum didn't develop chronic anxiety from my constant attempts to run into traffic. A 10/10. Just fine because my mom kept my dumbass from running into traffic or getting lost. Toddlers can't help being dumb as frick. They haven't learned yet. I have zero issue with my parents walking me like a dog because I wasn't much smarter than one at the time. All my life, I have teased my younger sister about you had to have a leash. It was actually a harness. Pink. I am over 50, and I can still clearly remember what it looked like. About 5 years ago, my mom heard me make a teasing comment and turned around and said, "She never wore the harness. Only you did." Seriously, you know your sister never liked to walk from babyhood. Foot problems. Why would you think she would ever run out in traffic? You were the one I couldn't catch. I was horrified. Clearly, I was in denial for decades. I'm fine now. Profoundly embarrassed that I randomly teased my sister for 40 years about it though, when it was actually me wearing it. Or your mom is still playing mind games to get you to stop teasing your sister. Not my story, but my little brother's. When he was younger, my parents had a leash for him disguised as a monkey backpack called Monkey Babido. I don't know why, but he's 11 now, and he's rude, and whenever we go somewhere in public he walks way ahead of my family and I and them gets mad if we spend more than 10 seconds looking at something. In reality, he probably still needs a leash. Sucker never learned to heel. Oh come on. Quit being such a baby. We put you on a leash because you were freaking out of control. If we didn't, you'd probably have been hit by a car or something by now. Now go to bed. No more phone time. We're going to see your grandma for Easter tomorrow, so put on a nice collared shirt when you wake up. Username on point. My mother once came home to find me, aged about 2 years old, tied by a length of rope around my ankle to a stake in the lawn. She had left me in the care of my father, but he had paperwork to do and figured that I wouldn't come to any harm within a 5-yard radius. I wasn't put on a leash, but I wore overalls mostly, and my parents used that as a leash. I'm still a dumbass and I'm planning on taking a blowtorch to Pepto-Bismol to see what happens. Don't tell me, I wanna find out myself. Tell us what happens. I had 4 kids in 5 years. One time we went on a trip out of the country. We did actually put the kids on leashes, a chest harness with 10 feet of line when we were in the foreign airport. I felt like a creepy piece of crap, but I knew where my toddlers were. A few years later, we were traveling to another foreign country on leashes. I ordered fast food at the airport layover in a foreign country with one of my kids, age 5, by my side. Within the time it took me to order, my son was gone. Don't worry, it turned out that he saw his dad at a table 35 yards away and sat with them. But you better believe I wished to heaven I had him on a leash the 60 seconds I had no idea where he went. Don't judge. People can be bad, and it's not usually the people who are protecting their kin. I had 4 kids in 5 years. That would give me a nervous breakdown. Today I was walking with my 3-year-old nephew who is wild AF and loves to run away from you singing and screaming and doesn't realize when he's running towards danger, and I honestly thought he needs a leash. My sister, his mom, agrees. I'm doing good. I had crappy coordination as a kid, so my mum used one of those backpack leashes to just help me not be so bad at walking or standing, lol. He is 33 and alive thanks to having a leash on him at ages 2 and 3, as he was quick as lightning and impulsive as heck. Seriously, it was a little velcro strap around his wrist and mine with a plastic old-time telephone cord between us. He is currently working full-time and going to college for his 2nd bachelor's degree. He appreciates that I did everything I could to keep from running into traffic or being kidnapped at the mall. I had the same leash, age 35 here. My mom and dad put my twin sister and me on those occasionally when it was just one of them with us and we were in a crowded area. We turned out fine. My mom tried this one time in the mall in Toronto because we were from a small town not used to that many people, and I was a very energetic kid at 2. My immediate reaction was to go down on all fours and start barking at people that walked by. The leash lasted under a minute. Well, I am not dead and I definitely would have run into traffic without it, so just fine. Still super adventurous though. I just climb mountains now instead of bookcases. I'm doing fine. My sister is doing fine. I use a backpack leash on my kids all the time. I frequently get told I'm abusing my kids, that I'm cruel, that I'm treating them like pets and not children. But I always point out that it's not feasible to carry them everywhere or to always use a stroller or cart, and it hurts their arms to hold the hand of an adult. Seriously, hold your arm above your head for 30 minutes while walking around a store, while slightly being pulled in different directions. Your shoulder will begin to ache after minutes. The average shopping trip is 30 minutes, but can be as long as 2 hours. Meanwhile, the leash system gives them a small degree of freedom, teaches them to not run around like a wild hellion that everyone likes to be about, and they are genuinely happy. My son sometimes begs to have his monkey leash with him even though we plan to toss him into a stroller or cart. Leashes for kids all the way. It should be standard issue to all parents. I think the backpack leashes are cute and I don't understand why people would comment like that. Apparently I would just take it off and run around anyway, so my mom then decided to attach a balloon to me. I actually supported leashing toddlers in high traffic areas before I found out I was leashed as a kid and still do. I can never be on time for even the most important obligations because the only thing that kept me punctual before was my mom or dad tugging the leash. When my dad was a kid, they didn't have human child leashes, so my grandma tied a belt around my dad to keep tabs on him. He's super mellow now. The only reason people look down on leashes for kids is because people call them leashes. They provide more freedom and more exercise than strollers while keeping the child safe. No one would ask people whose parents strapped you down as kids, "How are you now?" in reference to putting kids in strollers. Not me, but my sister. When she was a baby, she would often be randomly found on the roof. People from 2 blocks away would turn up with her saying she just appeared at their house. Not chucking a leash on her would have been child endangerment. She is now married, got a decent job, teaches a performing arts school, singing BB for the biggest Christmas concert in the country every year, often travels overseas with an R&B singer. That's what happens when you are prevented from constantly running into traffic. I know grown adults who can't be out in public unsupervised because they will run out in front of cars going full speed. I'm all for leashes, not just on children. Currently, 21, studying in Canada, will graduate in August, computer studies. I have a part-time job, a very loving girlfriend, happy, credits to my parents. I have never had a drink. My dad was an addict. He inspired me not to drink. I am good at studying. Reasons that I don't talk to them anymore. I had little to no moral values when I came to Canada 2 years ago. They never trusted me even when they would say that they do. Yes, no. I was put on a leash because I wandered off as a 2-year-old when I was visiting a lake with my family. It took my parents an hour to realize that their younger kids wasn't holding either of their hands. My dad thought I was with my mom, and my mom thought I was with my dad, lol. So when they panicked and thought I might have gotten lost in the water or fell into a ditch, they started frantically looking for me. Turns out I was just observing a nearby soccer game and some friendly old man had been keeping an eye on me since he saw my parents weren't around. My parents have since become better at parenting, lol, and my mom has got to raise 6 kids. I don't like soccer as much anymore though, lol. I was never particularly on a leash, but my parents used to warn me about the big bad world a little too much. I'm from a small town in Ireland, and whenever I even mentioned the idea of going to Dublin, 1-hour journey by train, I wouldn't be allowed, and I had no choice in the matter as I was too young to make my own decisions. I was about 15 at the time. During my leaving cert exams, 17 years old, I had to go to this extracurriculum class for physics on a Saturday, which was in Dublin. There was no problem with me going because I had to for my education. But me myself, I was terrified. I had heard such bad things about big cities that I was in constant fear and could never just relax. Today I'm 22 years old and I've moved to Galway. I went there on my own. I've made friends for life. I've traveled a lot, including Dublin, around Europe, and come to realize that not everybody is against you, and that is something everyone needs to figure out for themselves. There are a lot of bad people in this world, but there are also a lot of nice people too. Go find those nice people. They are easier to come across than you think. Just fine. We traveled a lot to foreign countries when I was very young. 3 years old. My parents wanted to make sure they knew where I was at all times. I'm good now. Still trying to keep from running into traffic. My grandma used the leash backpacks for my twin aunts when they were in public and 2 toddlers tried to run in 2 different directions. It helped a lot. They are both a little weird now though. Yet to be hit by a truck, so I'd say I'm a success. I was at a food festival the other day and saw some poor lady have to abandon the pram and all of her belongings and just sprint away to recapture her escaping toddler. I think I'd probably use one of those harness leashes too. The key is that you shouldn't be tugging on it. It's just there for safety. Great. This was in the 60s and we were traveling by train. It was an easy way for my dad to keep up with me as he carried suitcases. Mom was chasing down my brother. My girlfriend asked me to get one of those GPS tracking apps because I wander off a lot still, so I think it was well deserved. Fine, thanks. 50-60 years ago they were a pretty normal thing, but they were called reins then. They were usually a full leather harness with a back and breastplate and a looped strap for parents to hold onto. Got pictures of me at the zoo wearing one and feeding the elephants. Can't do that now either. All things considered, pretty good. Had a decent childhood, made some dumb mistakes as a young adult, making good progress getting my life back on track. The usual. That said, my parents only made me wear the leash when they took me to the zoo, and to this day I still go apeshit over animals. I'm a triplet. My dad commutes to work weekly so he was only home on weekends. My mum would put us all on leashes as small toddlers, otherwise at least one of us would run away from her. Turned out fine. It was only while we were very small and completely understandable at the time. She likes to tell me the story of our first time at Legoland when we were 1. As soon as we were off our leashes, my sister and I ran in different directions and my brother beelined towards a family picnic. So he ate a picnic with them while my parents had to go fetch the two of us. I used to be put on a leash because we lived in a big city and tried to run away often when walking on the streets. Can't say it had any effect on my adult behavior or personality. Overall, doing quite well. Special needs educator information here. Last year I worked with little kids between 4 and 10 years old in a few different groups, and God as the leash helped us in some cases. Like this one little 4 years old boy diagnosed with ASD and nonverbal. He's going to turn 6 soon and is still nonverbal, and when we got out in the city or in the woods we would always have a leash with us. And when we couldn't hold him by the hand all the time we would use it. We went for a week in the woods every day all day long with all young kids in the school and it was a blessing. He was able to run free and it didn't bother him at all. The leash I used there was about 4 meters long and I could follow him easily. For me it was really awesome. I recommend it 100% for anyone who is in charge of a kid who might put themselves in danger, special condition or not. I was deaf, massively ADHD, and stubborn. My parents had no choice because once I was on my feet it didn't matter if they were watching me, because I would bolt like a bat out of heck in any direction. A leash was mandatory. I'm 22 and perfectly fine. I honestly don't understand why a leash is such a big issue amongst debaters unless it involves a parent that is simply lazy. I'd do it to my own kid if I had one until they developed the habit of not wandering too far. Other side of the coin. My parents were vehemently opposed to leashes and instead just taught me to stay close by instilling intense fear in me of just about everything. I have severe anxiety as an adult. I was also judgmental about leashes until I worked as a nanny as a teenager. One particular kid had a habit of taking off running in parking lots, and I'd have to chase him down while also dealing with his sister. He was only 3 and even perfectly normal 3-year-olds don't really have the cognitive skills or impulse control to be reasoned with about things like that. I wished so badly that his parents would have let me use a leash. I will have no qualms about using a comfortable and appropriate leash for my own son if he turns out to be a runner. I honestly think it's kinder and easier on toddlers and preschoolers to have the physical barrier rather than expecting them to have developmentally advanced impulse control and situational awareness, assuming the child is not being jerked around or physically hurt. I'm actually a functioning individual. I can speak to people easily, do my work on time with a somewhat okay result, and I'm so apathetic about someone's problems when it doesn't affect me that I purposefully forget it. I also lose my wallet a lot. When I was little, the moment I got out the door I would bolt for the street, not even the sidewalk. The leash was the only way of ensuring I wouldn't become roadkill. I'm alive. Our backyard was not fenced and I used to take off running anytime I was in the backyard. Mom attached me to the clothesline. I could go a lot of places but nowhere near the road. Not me, but when one of my childhood friends was adopted his parents tried this. They were worried he'd get lost, so they put him on a leash in the airport. He got down on all fours and started barking. He's in the Marines now. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.